You know, sometimes it's just best to shut the fuck up.
Have you ever found yourself oversharing more than you should? Have you ever found yourself talking to somebody and then when you get home, you are beating yourself up like,
hey, why did I say all these things? Hey, listen me. Hey, I'm out.
This video is for you, sit tight. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time of seeing this channel, hello and thank you for joining us. Please consider hitting the subscribe button and joining the bestship. And to my returning besties, hello and welcome back once again to watch another video. Today's video we are talking about oversharing. Oversharing has put a lot of people in difficult emotional turmoil. Let's call it difficult emotional turmoil because you are saying so much to somebody 1 minute unprovoked, then when you get home you're having migraine. Hey, did I say too much? Why did I say this? Why didn't I just keep quiet? You know, you are blaming yourself because you overshared, and this is a serious problem. I mean, for oversharers it is a very serious problem. I know that everything is a trauma response. Some behaviors that we exhibit as adults is a trauma response, and I read that if you overshare a lot, it is because your inner child is crying out to be heard. Probably when you were little, you were never allowed to speak up on something, or probably you grew up alone, only child, or probably you were just an introvert. Whatever be the cause or whatever be the reason why you overshare and you no longer want to overshare, today's video I'll be giving you 4 tips, 4 things you need to do to avoid oversharing. If you no longer want to overshare again, this video is for you. Sit tight and let's get right into it. So first things first, what is even oversharing? Oversharing can be mistaken for authenticity or being authentic most of the time, but there's a difference between being authentic and oversharing. Being authentic is providing information to someone who is actually asking about it and willing to know, but when it comes to oversharing, you are burdening someone else with information that they didn't ask for, thereby placing so much emotional stress on these people that are listening to you. So oversharing is when you say more than is appropriate, and you can overshare via social media, via text, or in person. A lot of times you see people saying some things and in your head you're like, we should really know less about each other. I really shouldn't be hearing this. You feel like they are telling you too much, they're giving too much information more than you asked for. So if you are the person who is giving out too much information more than other people ask for, this video is going to help you. Without further ado, let's get right into the 4 ways you can avoid oversharing. Number 1, learn to ask questions. Asking questions instead of being the one doing the talking is going to help you to avoid oversharing. When you're in a social gathering with somebody and you're feeling like, oh, it's getting awkward, people overshare because they feel that awkward silence is coming on and they want to avoid that awkward silence. So instead of being the one to keep talking, then you start oversharing. Ask the other person questions. You can ask them about their job, you can ask them what makes them happy. Do you love your job? You can ask them about their favorite things to do. But while you're asking them questions, avoid asking them questions that are too personal, so they don't feel uncomfortable and also overshare if they are an oversharer too. So in your bid to ask them questions, remember not to ask them questions that are too personal that they won't be comfortable talking about with you. So keep the questions just non-personal. Keep the questions simple, keep it very easy for them to just make polite conversations. You can ask them their favorite things to do and ask them what they are currently working on. Simple questions. Don't start asking them when they plan to get married. So next time you feel like you need to overshare, take a pause in your head, count to 5 and just ask the person a question. You can talk about their outfits, you can say something about their hairdo, you can give them a compliment, and from there you are building conversations and you are putting off the pressure that is on you to overshare, and instead you are just having polite conversations with this person. Number 2 thing to do is slow down before you speak. The reason why a lot of people overshare is because they are speaking so fast. They don't take it easy, they don't take it slow at all. If you are someone who doesn't know how to slow down to talk, you need to start learning to slow down to talk. Yes, don't say everything that just pops in your head and then you start saying it. You need to learn to slow down. Take it easy. It is not a competition here. Take it easy. I know it is one of the things you can't control, but if you put in the work, you can actually work on it. If someone asks you a question, before you respond, digest that question before answering and ensure that you don't jump right into stories upon stories upon stories because you are feeling anxious. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to share with this person relevant? Is it very important? Do they need to know these details? Am I sharing too much? Ask yourself these questions in your head, and if your answers are no, then there's no point sharing it with them. Number 3 way to avoid oversharing is waiting before you click the send button. This one is for those who overshare via text. If you are supposed to text someone about something, or if you're having a conversation with someone about something and you notice that you've typed up so much and you are writing paragraphs already, take a pause. Don't just hit send immediately. Read that message again. Notice the parts of the message that is absolutely unnecessary. If you have a close friend or a close sibling that you trust, you can send them the text to help you go through it and cut down anything that is totally unnecessary. Then send it back to you before you send to this person. Like I mentioned, people can overshare via text, they can overshare in person, and they can overshare on social media. So I'm talking about oversharing via text right here, or email. So if you need to send someone a message and you notice that this message is already, having too many paragraphs, it's beginning to look like an essay, honey, you need to actually sit down, read this message before you click send. And finally, recognize your oversharing trigger. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I said a lot of people overshare because it's like a trauma response. There's an inner child in them that is trying to be heard, or they are probably anxious, or they faced something when they were young. They couldn't, talk to other people or make friends. So when they see someone, they start to overshare and say too much than they ought to say. So if you figure out what your oversharing trigger is, you'll be able to know what to work on in order to avoid falling into this trap of oversharing all of the time. There are so many different reasons why people overshare. You need to know which one resonates with you. Is it because you grew up as an only child? Is it because you grew up lonely or alone or by yourself? You never had so many friends? Are you oversharing because you're feeling anxious? Are you oversharing because you feel it's a way for you to build that intimacy with people or easily make friends? A lot of people feel like when they overshare, they are going to be seen as authentic and then vulnerable, and they can easily make friends with people because most friendships work out based on being your authentic self. But oversharing is not a way to show your authentic self. So if you find it difficult to identify what your oversharing trigger is, you need to ask yourself, when was the last time I overshared? Who was I with? What was the conversation about? What time of day was it? Where was I? What happened before I started oversharing? All these questions are going to help you identify what your oversharing triggers are. So when you think about answers, consider what the theme indicates. Could it be that you overshare when you are nervous about meeting people? Could it be that you are oversharing because you feel like it is a way for you to build a connection? So the next time you are near your oversharing trigger, you are able to become an active listener and not, be pushed to start oversharing again. I feel like adding this extra to shift the conversation. This is another thing you can do when you want to avoid oversharing. When it comes to shifting the conversation, let me explain something a little. A lot of people overshare because they are being asked some personal or difficult questions that they can't they feel they can't avoid answering that question, and so they start to overshare. Take for example, you're at a party and you're meeting different people, and then suddenly someone tells you, oh, I know you work at so and so place, and you say yes, and then they ask you, how much do you earn? It's a new person you're meeting, and your salary is like your personal information. You shouldn't just blot it out to anybody. So instead of you just going out try to start talking about it as an oversharer, you can shift that conversation by witty banter. Take for example, they say how much is your salary, you can just say, oh, it's a little more than my hair, a little more than my hair. That way they don't know if it is high, if it is low, or whatever figure it is that you are earning, which they don't need to know, by the way. You are just countering the questions they ask with witty answers or witty replies, thereby shifting the conversation from the main thing that you are being asked. This is another way for you to avoid oversharing, by shifting the conversation with witty responses or something smart, and then shifting that conversation from the question asked. That way you avoid answering, but then you're not being rude. Conclusion, I mentioned that in order for you to avoid oversharing, you should learn to shift the conversation in a polite way. Find your oversharing trigger. What is that thing that causes you to overshare? Proofread your text before you hit the send button. That way you remove any unnecessary details that is not needed. Slow down before you speak. Finally, I talked about asking questions. Keep it on the surface level. Keep it really on the surface level, nothing too personal. With this, I've come to the end of today's video, and I hope that if you're an oversharer, you're able to pick something from this. And if you're not an oversharer, then needs to also, curb their oversharing tendencies. Share this video with them, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you are yet to hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next video.